Welcome, everyone, to episode 7 of Seek, Search, Succeed, a podcast dedicated to helping sales enablement pros that are transitioning to new roles. Today, I'm joined by Melissa, who is the founder and chief fabulous officer at TMM Enablement Services, author of Enabler, I Hardly Know Her, and winner of Sales Enablement Pros Women Making an Impact in Sales Enablement 2023 Award. Melissa, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you and to talk about your book. Before we do that, tell people a little bit about who you are when you're not enabling teams.
Ooh, well, I'm an international woman of mystery, and if I tell you, I will have to kill you. Now, I'm a mechanical engineer by background. I'm based in Toronto, Canada. Love to read, love to play video games, love to cuddle my cat Pickle, who makes lots of appearances on my social media. And every now and then, I've got a husband that I kind of pay attention to.
How did you mechanical engineer to enablement? What was that journey like?
A little bit of opportunity. I sort of fell into sales. I fell into sales enablement, and just combination of opportunity and sparkling personality and a desire to make lots of money. And that's how I ended up in sales.
That's the salesperson's dream. We talked with Caroline a few episodes ago, and she was talking about she was a professional actor, starving actor in New York City, like living the dream actor life. But then one day she got offered a sales job that turned into a sales enablement job, and she was like, "I can make that much money, and I don't have to do acting anymore." Such a cool profession, such an unlimited, untapped potential.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to talk about your book that you have out. I love the title. I hope I did it justice with my intro. Enabler, I Hardly Know Her.
That's right.
Tell us about it. And what are some of the top things for people watching this that maybe are transitioning to a new role that people could pull out of it and skills they could develop by reading the book?
Yeah. So you did the book title justice. It's Enabler, I Hardly Know Her. But the subtitle is How to Make the Sales Experience Not Suck, which I think a lot of folks forget that it's not just about enabling your revenue generating functions. You're enabling them to create revenue and to build a brand. And one of the things I talk about is being thoughtful about how you're enabling your teams so that the experience that they create for the end buyer is an amazing experience. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how strongly you enable your teams, if it doesn't land well on the target audience, it's not going to be a great experience. So thinking about that buyer experience, about that customer's experience is really critical and sort of a main theme that I talk about throughout the course of the book. And then how do you actually do enablement in service of that buyer experience?
That's really cool. So when I first started in enablement, I was trained by a guy at my current company who was transitioning out of the role. And I went to him and I said, okay, from what I understand I'm supposed to be doing, because my first enablement job is I basically got to get salespeople to do all the stuff they don't want to do. And he's like, no, that is not what you're doing at all. Like, it's so much more. You're going to help them and curate these experiences, and the customer's going to have this experience based on what you enable people to do. And I just didn't get that at all in the beginning. I just thought I'm going to be the trainer who has to host these sessions that salespeople don't want to go to, but there's so much more to it than that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not that salespeople don't want to do the things. It's just they've got a lot of stuff going on. Like, I have been a salesperson in the past. And when you think about all the things that you have to do, first you have to generate your own leads. Like, I grew up in a time when I didn't have an SDR because SDRs didn't exist. So to generate my own interest, I had to create my own marketing campaigns. I had to get on the calls and talk to people. I had to funnel those folks through opportunities. And you've got to parse out your time so that you're spending the right time with the right prospects and then nurturing the ones that aren't. So you've got all these things, and then you got to go to negotiations, and then the salespeople have all these things going on. And it's not that they don't want to do the things, it's just they may not necessarily know how to prioritize, or they may not necessarily know how to work smart. They might be working really hard, but they might not necessarily know how to work smart. So for enablement, it's a really great opportunity to guide the revenue generating teams on, here's how you work smarter, not harder.
So what are some ways we do it? Like, I'm still fairly new to enablement. Part of this journey is being curious about other enablers and getting to chat with them. Like, what are your best tips to make people really good at enabling those sellers?
Yeah. Keep it simple. I know it's sort of a corny, the corny acronym, keep it simple, stupid, but I'm my experience, and certainly clients that I work with, I find that folks overcomplicate. Um, and part of it might be they're trying to generate, really sticky enablement. So they're making things a little bit more complicated than it needed to be. But really, all it boils down to is you're trying to assist the folks that are in front of your buyers and customers in closing more business faster while also creating that great experience. So everything that you do as an enablement function should be in service of helping the sales team know what it is they got to sell. Like, that's step one. They got to know what it is they're selling. In the book, I call it know what's on the truck. Like, whatever is on your truck, that's what they need to know about. But also, why should the person that's your target buyer, first of all, who's the target buyer? And then why should the person that's the target buyer care about what you have on the truck? Like, what's it mean to them? And then there's kind of the processes, like how do you actually get to closing opportunities a lot faster. So for me, there's sort of three main pillars. It's what's on the truck, like what am I selling, to whom am I selling it, and then how do I go about selling it in a way that's efficient that can help me close more business faster. And whenever enablement teams get lost, it's usually because they're not reorienting themselves to one of those pillars, and they're getting too distracted by all the things that are coming in that have absolutely nothing to do with this sort of those three core tenets, which is what am I selling, to whom am I selling, and how do I go about selling this stuff. And that's it. I keep it simple. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. Now, there's a lot of stuff that goes under each of those pillars, but when in doubt, just go back to those.
I like this idea of what's on the truck. So as you were saying, like, keep it simple. In my mind, I was thinking, like, I work with a tech company. We have so many different products. We always are acquiring new products. There's not really a simple way, I was thinking, to do this, right? Like, it's very complicated.
Mhm.
But you're so right. Like, it's no different than if we just had a truck with stuff in the back of it. We were trying to sell it grassroots style. Like, it can be simple. Maybe
Mhm.
I'm complicating it, and that's why I think it's so hard.
Yeah, and you're not alone. Like, it's totally okay if you're complicated, because most folks do overcomplicate it because they think, well, our product is so complex, or we have this extensive thing. And really, like, it's always about the buyer. I always take it back to, from the buyer's perspective, why will they care about this thing? So the analogy I use in the book is sort of a produce truck. So I've got oranges on this truck that I need to sell. And so talking about the orange to the buyer and all the facets of the orange and the width of the orange, or the diameter of the orange, and how thick the peel is and how pithy is it, buyer doesn't care. Or how many seeds does it have, buyer doesn't care. What the buyer cares about is, what problem do I have that this orange is solving for? And maybe I don't even know I have a problem. Maybe I'm have onset scurvy symptoms and I have no idea. And you're coming along and telling me, hey, Melissa, you actually are kind of exhibiting symptoms of scurvy. And these oranges can help you solve for that. That's basically what you're doing. That's, from an enablement perspective, that's what you're trying to get into the brains of the sales team. It's what problem does this thing that's on the truck solve for that the buyer cares about? And then everything else is just overcomplicating it.
That's a really cool thing that people watching this show could bring into interviews or into a new role. I'm thinking about when you get into a new business, they can be bogged down by the complications that they've created, the complications in the business. It'd be really cool as a new person, you can come in with a voice of like, hey, here's how simple it could. I can see the basics of how simple it could be. I read a book once called Rookie Smarts, and basically the premise of the book is like, if you don't know anything, you have really good ideas because they're different than the people that have all this experience. And that same thing could be true of people coming into new roles. That's really a really interesting perspective. I love it.
Yeah, it 100%, because when you think about it, when you're doing something for so long, you don't even notice things anymore. Um, I read this article in Sales Hacker magazine. I can't remember how long ago it was, but basically it talked about how a new hire joined an organization and had a tour of the office and saw that there was this massive orange extension cord kind of straddling a hallway, and people are just walking over it, not paying it attention. And at the end of the day, the new hires manager is like, how did you like your first day on the job? And new hires like, great, but what's up with the orange extension cord? And the manager said, what orange extension cord? So when you're at an organization, you start to get sort of so rooted in the same and your status quo, and you just start to not see things because you just become blinded to it because you're so used to it. As a new hire coming in, regardless of how junior or senior you are, you've got fresh eyes. And that's a really, like, you can point out the orange extension cords where people are like, oh yeah, why are we doing it that way? Like, that does seem kind of crazy now that you've pointed it out to me.
I am wondering if I worked at that company. So no joke, I worked for a startup where there was an extension cord running across the middle of the office. And a guy came in one day and said, "What's this extension cord?" And it was the power to the server room. It was like in a closet. And we told him, and he goes, "Should we tape it to the ground?" Like that was the solution. But that's so crazy. I wonder if that was the same guy. I
Who
wonder what that
knows?
guy's doing now. Too funny. So what else is in the book that people can read about and learn about that are really important skills? I love the keeping it easy. What else?
Yes. So thinking about prioritization and also taking a look at the data that exists in your organization. So I find that a lot of enablement professionals, especially when they're starting out, they fall into the, well, I'll do training, like you said earlier. I'll get really good training programs in place, and I'll get an LMS up and running, or we've got to onboard new hires, so we'll get a really solid onboarding program in place. And what I find a lot of enablement folks don't do, or just it falls to a lower priority, is actually taking a look at the data that exists in the organization and analyzing it. Things like pipeline and velocity of deals through the funnel and close rates or conversion rates at each stage of the sales cycle, and actually proactively saying, hey, we've got this weird thing that's happening here at this stage. Maybe it's deals or opportunities are sitting too long at a certain stage. That's a problem. Let's actually take a look. Let's listen to some gong calls and actually see why are deals stopping at this stage or parking in this stage for so long. And then you can actually sort of diagnostically figure out, okay, what we actually need to do is coach XYZ rep, or we need to build a program that helps them understand how to move from step to step, or maybe they just don't know how to run the sales process, so they just need some training around that. So really getting strategic about enablement versus it being quite often a reactive, oh, somebody needs something, I'm going to do it. Somebody needs something, I'm going to do it. It becomes like the sort of catch-all reactive enablement function. So a book talks about how do you actually think strategically about enablement so that it's a recurring function in the organization that actually continuously provides value.
And I think we're seeing a lot of like the top organizations pivoting in that way. I remember there was a time when a lot of sales trainers titles started changing on LinkedIn to sales enablement. And now I'm starting to see things like where sales enablement is turning into revenue enablement. I saw an article just from Peter Ostro and Forrester just this week about that. And now even seeing like revenue enablement pivot into like go-to-market strategy and strategy positions. So it's interesting how it's evolving to be so much more than sales training and all these different features and the different things that people can be doing that really was a gap in different groups.
Yeah, certainly when I started, enablement didn't exist. It was sales training. And sales training still exists and it's still important, but it's a facet of an overall structure to enable the organization. And I actually believe strongly in revenue enablement, which is not just the acquisition, sort of the getting new clients in the door. You have to have some sort of growth and retention strategy of those customers, especially in software as a service and tech fields. A lot of your revenue can be coming from existing customers. So there needs to be enablement all the way. Whoever's talking to the person that's buying, whether they're a new buyer or a current customer, there needs to be some sort of enablement that's occurring at all of those stages so that the folks that are talking to the target buyer, customer, prospect, they're having the right conversations.
Yeah, and you do a wealth of experience in the enablement space, a ton of experience. What other things, people that are watching this that are transitioning to new roles, should people be doing to upskill themselves or get better at being an enabler that would help them find new roles?
Yeah. One thing that I would definitely suggest is thinking more analytics, like being curious about sales pipeline, which means getting cozy with a revenue operations person or sales operations person to really understand, all right, what are my funnel metrics? And even get cozy with the marketing team and talk about what are the front of funnel metrics and flowing through into opportunity metrics that then flow into closed business, and getting curious about that data. Because when you start to look at that data and when you start to get curious about that, and then you start to diagnose the problem, now all of a sudden you're creating a lot of value of the enablement function. Because now enablement's not just here's some training or here's some process changes. Enablement's like, hey, I'm actually seeing something that's a problem, let's fix it. So you become diagnosticians. I don't know what the right word would be there, but you basically become the doctor of the funnel and start to diagnose and prescribe solutions for the stages that actually help the team close more business. And like a chief revenue officer, if you come as an enablement person, you come to the chief revenue officer and go, hey, I think we're having a problem at this stage, and here's some ways that we can solve for this problem. Chief revenue officer is going to be like, enablement rocks. I can't live without my enablement team. So the more you can upskill yourself on understanding funnel metrics, right from the beginning to the end, the more value you can provide to an organization.
You're connecting so many dots for me. Just on LinkedIn yesterday, I saw someone post, it was a picture of a Salesforce hoodie. And I was like, oh, I didn't know they worked at Salesforce, and they don't. And it was that if you take some of like the Trailblazer courses that Salesforce offers, they send you this like really cool hoodie that they designed. I just come and I was like, I want a hoodie. How did you get this? It's the summer right now. It's going to be 110 in Texas next week, but I still want this hoodie. And then I couldn't figure out, why are all these enablement people taking this Salesforce Trailblazer course on how to use Salesforce better? It didn't make any sense to me. But now hearing you talk about like, oh, this makes sense. These revenue and strategy positions, like it's so important to be able to manipulate these CRM systems to help you prove ROI for your programs, prove success of your programs, and help better enable the teams.
Yeah, because you can't trust, this is going to sound terrible, but I'm going to say it anyway. You can't trust the sales team or the salespeople or even the sales managers to come to you and ask for something that they actually need. And I don't know if that makes sense, but basically they might think they have a problem. But as an enablement professional, if you do understand how the data flows through the funnel, and if you do understand conversion metrics and velocity metrics and that kind of, and deal velocity and those kind of things, you can go, well, actually, you don't have this problem, you have that problem instead, right? Like I've had sales managers come to me and go, we need negotiations training, which is sort of an end of funnel activity. And I'm like, well, do we actually need negotiation training, or is the problem earlier in the funnel or earlier in the process where the salesperson isn't really clearly articulating the value to the buyer and the buyer doesn't understand the value? So by the time they get to the point of talking about pricing negotiations, they're struggling because they're in kind of a fight for features and functions and widgets on price versus value, which should have been painted way earlier in the funnel. And without that knowledge of how deals flow through and understanding the reporting and the metrics and understanding how to read a dashboard, it would be impossible for me to do that, to be able to actually diagnose the problem and go back to the sales leader and go, actually, you don't need a negotiations training. You need value-based training instead.
Yeah. One thing we've talked about on this show before is adding like softwares and skills to your resume that you're proficient in. And one really cool way to do that could be like Salesforce has free online training. I know HubSpot does. I'm sure like all the big CRM companies have these free trainings that you can take if you are transitioning to a new role and you have some time on your hands and you just want to get out of the minutia of searching for jobs and applying for jobs. That's kind of a good way to upskill yourself, stay relevant, get some new certifications you can add to your resume. So there's all kinds of free resources out there to learn this stuff.
Absolutely. I think Sales Enablement Collective has a ton of resources as well, free resources. There's if you search on LinkedIn, you'll find tons of free resources on that kind of training. But Salesforce alone has just a ton of trailhead courses that you can take on the topic.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so we're all going to start getting good at CRMs and learning the RevOps side of our business. What else can we be doing to upskill ourselves?
Um, Coaching is a good one. So understanding how to coach reps and how to effectively coach. Because what I find, certainly working with a lot of the clients that I've worked with, managers, sales managers aren't necessarily the best coaches. So quite often, enablement has to step in and play that coach to those reps. You know, listening in on calls and then providing effective coaching. And if you've never done that before, um, that's a skill you need to learn, because that it's not something that just necessarily comes naturally to folks. So definitely improving your ability to coach and mentor and pick out what, you know, from a call, what a rep could do better in that call and how to improve it, and providing constructive feedback. Like, those are all great skills to know as an enablement professional.
And how do we upskill ourselves in that? So I know there's some coaching softwares out there. I try and avoid the software, the tools conversation on this show, but what else? Like, I've seen some guides from some big publications like how to host better one-on-ones. But if you're not a great coach, if your strengths are elsewhere, like what's a good way to upskill your coaching abilities?
Well, I think part of anyone can be a good coach if they're trained up on it, if they want to. So if you don't feel you're a great coach, I would ask, why do you feel like you're not a great coach? Is it just you've never done it before, so you don't feel confident in it, or you don't know what to look for, or you just don't like it, which is totally feasible. Like, not everybody's a coach, so, or everybody can be a coach, not everybody wants to be a coach. So if you're in the, yeah, I want to be a coach, but I don't know how to do it. Sales Enablement Collective is great for that kind of stuff. Corporate Visions has a ton of stuff on coaching and how to coach and how to mentor. I think AASP, or A Association of Sales Professionals, they've got stuff, or AAISP, Association for Inside Sales Professionals. Like,
We got
there's
plenty of acronyms that we can, yeah.
tons of stuff out there that you can go to research and learn.
And with coaching, I think it's like anything. One of my favorite quotes is anything worth doing is worth doing poorly until you can learn to do it well. And
Mm,
coaching is very much one of those things, like where the first time you have a one-on-one with somebody, the first time you review a call with somebody, it's not going to be lightning in a bottle more than likely. But the more you do it and the more calls you listen to and the more practice you get at it, I think it just comes with a lot of experience.
yeah. Practice is key too. You know, get someone who you trust and just have a practice coaching session with them and have them tell you what worked, what didn't work. You know, how was your tone? Because tone quite often can play a role in coaching. So making sure your tone, like my husband says to me all the time, that I have a certain tone sometimes when I talk about things. So yeah, definitely practice with a buddy and get someone who you trust and practice with them. Practice, like anything, practice is what's going to really hone your craft.
Yeah. So do you ever like practice coaching on yourself? Do you ever watch your recordings back or watch things you've created and try and like give yourself advice from yourself? I guess I'm saying that the right way.
Yes, yeah. I have done, like, I've watched videos of myself, well, like anything, not just coaching, but presenting and even doing podcasts like this, and just seeing, oh, okay, I could do this differently, I could do that better, or getting feedback from folks that I trust, like, hey, did watch this and tell me what you thought, give me good feedback, what can I improve, what can't. You You know, I don't have any ego. I mean, I have a huge ego and I have no ego. So I have a huge ego because I think I'm fabulous. But I also have no ego in that I can always be better. Like, we're human beings and we can always learn differently, learn more, do things differently. You know, how I do things now is a lot different than how I did things 20 years ago, because like I've changed, stuff's changed, the world has changed. And so you need to sort of keep abreast of change and keep yourself upskilled all the way throughout. Always be learning and always be self-evaluating to improve yourself.
Yeah, that's a really inspirational story too for people that are transitioning to new roles, because maybe you won't be doing the same thing you were doing at your previous role. Like it could be the same, it could be enablement, but it might be a totally different facet, a more strategic role, a more
Sure.
training role, a leadership role versus a non-leadership role versus a coaching role. There's so
Yep.
many places these skills can manifest themselves.
Absolutely. And too, like, I went from solo practitioner to managing a team. And the stuff I was doing as a solo practitioner, I had to let go and distribute amongst a team, and then learn a whole different set of skills to manage a team of folks. So that's something that just comes with time, age, and also the different organizations too. So when I moved from solo practitioner to managing a team, I could, as a team, take on more responsibility and start to do some fun things like building a customer education portal. And so building sort of a customer place that is enablement, but it's enablement for customers instead of internal teams. And so you can start to take on new things that might be interesting to you that you may not necessarily have thought of if you hadn't made that kind of evolution in yourself.
Yeah, there's so many creative things people could be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking of the creative things, what are your recommendations for people that are on the hunt for a new role? Like, what would your top tips be? What do people need to know?
Well, that's a great question because I haven't been in the job market for a very long time, which is great because I'm on my own and I'm a consultant doing my own shtick. But I think the things to think about is very similar to how you would, or how I would view it, as how you would acquire new leads for your pipeline. I sort of view trying to acquire jobs kind of the same way, which is take a look at your ideal company profile, the company you want to work for and want to work with, and
ICPs,
start.
we've seen these things before. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and then start to see who you're connected to in those companies and see who your connections are and see if you can get an intro into whoever's hiring. So again, similar to how I would build a pipeline to get clients in, similar to how I would build a pipeline when I was a salesperson to try and get opportunities in the door. You kind of have to think like a salesperson when it comes to getting potential job offers in your pipeline. You got to think the same way, which is like, who do I want to work for, and who do I know that I can get in those connections and get in the door.
Yeah, we're preaching this like strategy to sales in our role to find people on LinkedIn, find the right customer, leverage your referrals, leverage your network, use LinkedIn. And then when we get out here and have an opportunity to do the same thing, it's hard to do it for yourself when you've been teaching it for so long.
It's hard to do it, period. So no joke, the job market right now there's lots of opportunities, but there's also lots of really great candidates. So I'll say just sort of collectively, don't get discouraged. I've been through many ups and downs in the market, and sometimes it could just be time that it takes for things to settle and stuff to open up. Sometimes it's a great opportunity for you to think about other things that you might want to do. Like maybe this is your opportunity. You've always wanted to go into sales. So maybe this is your opportunity to try it and see if you like it. Or maybe you're like, I'm in enablement, but I've always wanted to try marketing. And that might be an option too. So, or even I'm in enablement, but I've always wanted to give like product a go, and let's try that. So it's a great opportunity to try new things while you're also trying to find the right gig for yourselves.
Yeah. And if you are in that boat where you're trying to find something new, Melissa actually offers some really great services. If you connect with her on LinkedIn, do you want to talk a little bit about kind of how you've been helping people prepare and find some new roles?
Sure, yeah. So my organization, Team Enablement Services, I do a lot of advisory work for folks. So whether it's you're a new to enablement, you're just trying to figure it out, or help prioritize, or help block and tackle various sales leaders that are coming at you with requests. The analogy I use is, it's like even Serena Williams had coaches. And so that's the service I provide. Like, even if you think you're a rock star enablement professional, you can always use coaching hand. And if you've never done it before, maybe you just need a little bit of help. So I definitely provide those kind of services just to help folks out find their way. Again, when it comes to this, I have no ego in it. So it's not about me. I want to make sure that whoever I'm advising looks like a total rock star.
Yeah. And is LinkedIn the best way to connect with you? Do you have a website, or is there a better way to reach you?
I do have a website. It's www.melissamadian.com, or LinkedIn. Absolutely. I always welcome LinkedIn connections.
And where can we get your book?
You can find my book on my website. So depending upon where in the world you are, there are different links to different places, but basically like the Amazons, I'm in Canada, so the Indigos, Anywhere where you buy your books online, you should be able to find it.
Awesome. Well, if you are looking for a new role, check out Melissa's book, reach out to her on LinkedIn. You can also check out our Seek, Search, Succeed guide linked in the comments below. Big thank you to Melissa for joining us, and
Thank
we'll see
you.
everybody next time.